Sansa Sweetling, you were innocent of any wrong, we know that. Yet you are the daughter of a traitor.
What does it sound like when a queen turns a child's love for her father into a leash? Why does Cersei Lannister choose the word sweetling as her first address to a girl whose father she just had arrested? And how does a 13-year-old walk out of a small council chamber having agreed to help destroy the one family still positioned to save her? This is not a conversation. It is a surgical procedure, and Sansa has no idea she is on the table. You will see exactly how Cersei uses warmth as a delivery mechanism for coercion. You will learn the three-stage psychological trap that transforms Sansa from victim into collaborator. And you will understand why "your father's fate depends on you" is the most dangerous sentence a captor can say to a hostage. Let's lock the small council chamber and audit what was done inside it. Sansa Stark is 13 years old. She is the daughter of the man who was just arrested for treason against the crown. She is engaged to the king. She is alone in King's Landing, separated from Arya, with no idea what has happened to anyone who might help her. Cersei Lannister knows all of this before Sansa enters the room. She also knows Sansa is not a threat, but Sansa has something valuable: a name, access to family loyalty, and a brother in the north who is about to call his banners. The crown needs Robb Stark to hesitate long enough to prevent mobilization. The fastest route to Robb Stark runs directly through the person he trusts most. What Cersei constructs over the next 3 minutes is not an interrogation. It is architecture, built from false sympathy, engineered panic, and conditional hope, designed to transform an isolated child into a willing instrument. Sansa enters this room believing Cersei might help her father. She leaves having agreed to help Cersei instead.
The girl is innocent, Your Grace. She should be given a chance to prove her loyalty.
Littlefinger's intervention appears to be mercy. He positions himself between Sansa and Pycelle's harsher suggestion that a traitor's daughter might grow up to hatch treasons of her own, and he advocates for her. The framing is protective. The function is the opposite. And the source is the most important detail of all. The man speaking is the same man whose betrayal put Ned Stark in chains. He is not defending Sansa. He is managing her, keeping her inside the system, compliant and useful, rather than allowing her to be discarded. The word "prove" does precise damage here. Sansa has just been told she is innocent, and the very next breath introduces a condition she must satisfy to remain that way. This is conditional innocence. The tactic of naming someone's blamelessness while immediately placing that blamelessness in debt, so that every subsequent action feels like repayment rather than coercion. Conditional innocence. Declaring someone guiltless in one breath while attaching a behavioral requirement to that guiltlessness in the next, so that compliance feels like self-preservation rather than surrender. The effect on Sansa is visible in real time. 30 seconds ago, she was the daughter of a traitor, a girl with no future. Now she is a girl who can still rescue her future if she does the right thing. That shift from despair to conditional hope is the engine Cersei is about to drive at full speed.
Little Dove, you must write to Lady Catelyn. And your brother, the eldest, what's his name? Robb.
2 words arrive before the instruction: Little Dove. The choice is not affection, it is repositioning. By the time Cersei delivers the actual task, she has already rewritten what kind of person Sansa is: something small, gentle, fragile, and naturally inclined to follow direction. Something for whom obedience is not coercion, but species behavior. This is benevolent capture, the tactic of packaging a demand inside the language of maternal warmth, causing the target to experience constraint as care and instruction as guidance. Benevolent capture. Wrapping a compulsory directive in affectionate address so that the target cannot refuse the demand without also rejecting the apparent warmth. Making resistance feel like ingratitude rather than self-protection. Sansa has been called Sweetling and Little Dove within 2 minutes of each other. Neither name belongs to her. Both names belong to Cersei's framing of who Sansa must be in this moment: trusting, pliable, and grateful. The actual demand: write a letter telling your brother to stand down, almost functions as an afterthought. The real work was done in the address.
Urge your brother to keep the king's peace. Tell him to come to King's Landing and swear his fealty to Joffrey.
The instruction is framed to sound administrative. Keep the king's peace carries the cadence of civic duty, not political capitulation. But what Cersei is asking Sansa to write is a letter that tells Robb Stark, "Your father has committed treason. Travel south, bend the knee." This is Sansa's hand delivering a Lannister ultimatum to the one person positioned to resist it. The closer the relationship, the more effective the tool. Cersei has not just weaponized Sansa's compliance, she has weaponized the bond between siblings, transforming familial love into a transmission mechanism for crown authority. Whatever credibility Robb's sister's handwriting carries, it now carries this message instead. When Robb receives the letter a few scenes later, the read is accurate. It is your sister's hand, but the queen's words. The manipulation is completely legible from outside the chamber. From inside it, Sansa saw only a path to saving her father.
You disappoint me, child. We've told you of your father's treason. Why would you want to speak to a traitor?
Sansa has asked to see her father first, to speak with him before agreeing to write. It is a reasonable request. It is the first and only time she pushes back against anything said in that room. Cersei's response is immediate and surgically chosen. Not anger, not threat, but disappointment. Disappointment is the specific emotional register deployed against people whose primary motivation is approval. Sansa has spent her entire young life performing correctness for the adults around her. "You disappoint me" is not a punishment. It is an attack on her core identity as a well-behaved, admired, reliable daughter. The second sentence compounds the wound. "We have told you of your father's treason. Why would you want to speak to a traitor?" Sansa's completely natural impulse. She wants to see her father, has been retroactively reframed as suspicious. If she still wants to see him, she must believe he is innocent. If she believes he is innocent, she might be loyal to the wrong side. One hesitation, one small request, transmuted instantly into a loyalty question she must now answer.
That depends. On what? On your brother.
Sansa asks what will happen to her father. Cersei gives her the most dangerous possible answer. It depends. Then she names the two conditions. This is complicity architecture, the deliberate transfer of responsibility for an outcome from captor to captive, not through threat, but through the language of agency. The structure is devastating because it feels like empowerment. Sansa is not being told what will happen to Ned. She is being told that she has the power to influence it. Complicity architecture, framing a coercive demand as a personal opportunity, making the target feel responsible for the outcome, so that compliance feels like heroism and refusal feels like abandonment. The shift in the room is total. Sansa enters as a hostage. She leaves as a participant. She does not write the letter because she was forced to. She writes it because Cersei has engineered a situation in which writing the letter is the only act of love still available to her. No command was issued. A choice was constructed, and then every option except one was quietly removed. In George R.R. Martin's novel, Sansa's perspective is rendered from the inside. Her chapters in A Game of Thrones show a girl whose entire interpretive framework has been built from songs, stories, and courtly ideals. Righteous kings, wicked traitors, benevolent queens who know best. Cersei exploits that framework because it is already in place before Sansa enters the room. The blind spots don't need to be created. They arrived pre-installed. The small council scene exists in the novel with one critical difference. Martin gives us Sansa's interior voice, oscillating between desperate hope and a creeping dread she immediately overrides. Readers watch her almost recognize what is happening, then rationalize it away, because the alternative is accepting that the queen she has idolized her entire life is using her as an instrument. The show strips away that interior access completely. Viewers watch from outside, forensically, the way an observer with no emotional stake would. The result is more brutal. Without Sansa's rationalizations to soften the manipulation, every move Cersei makes is fully legible, and it succeeds anyway. That is Martin's deepest point. The most effective manipulation doesn't require its target to be blind. It only requires that their need for hope outweigh their capacity for doubt. Conditional innocence appears in interrogation rooms, human resources offices, abusive relationships, and institutional proceedings across every field. "We don't believe you did anything wrong, but you'll need to demonstrate that." The phrasing sounds protective, The structure is accusatory. The target is not being cleared. They are being administered a compliance test disguised as an opportunity for exoneration. Benevolent capture runs in every dynamic where authority is exercised through warmth rather than force. The mentor who calls you kiddo right before asking for something that benefits only them. The manager who is always looking out for you and whose protection costs you your autonomy. The senior colleague whose guidance is so freely given that declining it reads as ingratitude. The endearment is structural. It removes the target's ability to name the transaction for what it is. Complicity architecture is the most elegant of the three because it never needs to be acknowledged. When a person in power makes another person feel that an outcome depends on their choice, the captor has successfully externalized responsibility for the coercion. Whatever happens next, the target chose it. The machinery becomes invisible the moment it starts working. Cersei Lannister wins this scene without raising her voice, making a direct threat, or doing anything that could be pointed to as cruelty. Sansa leaves the chamber believing she has been offered the only path to saving her father, unaware that she has become the mechanism of her family's destruction. The letter Robb receives is written in Sansa's hand, in Sansa's words, and it does exactly what Cersei designed it to do. Coercion dressed as mercy doesn't need force. It only needs a child who still believes that following the right rules leads to the right outcomes. What is your verdict? Could Sansa have seen through this at 13? Or was she always going to be outmatched from the moment those doors closed? Drop your diagnosis in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.